Tropical storm Alberto has formed in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. We'll look at that, the disturbance east of the Bahamas, and another very wet and stormy day for a lot of our area. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on this Wednesday afternoon. Coming up, I've got the newest information on our first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. We now have Tropical Storm Alberto in the southwest Gulf. We'll look at the disturbance just east of the Bahamas and another very wet, stormy day across a lot of the Caribbean as well. As we get started in this video, you know I love to hear from you guys. Didn't get as many comments in yesterday's video, so let's do that. Drop it in the comment section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. I appreciate that while you're down there. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and hitting that like button right now. Okay, we'll start off just like we did yesterday to remind all of our subscribers that I will be streaming our 24/7 weather channel here at Meteo Mundo. So in between these videos, if you want to get the newest information on Alberto or what's happening weather-wise in real time across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, go to the live tab here at Meteo Mundo, click on that, and then look for this thumbnail, the live radar of Tropical Storm Alberto. This will come back on right after I upload this video. And again, it's a great resource that you can check in with here if you want that up-to-date real-time information. You're going to get this running in real time. You're going to get your live satellite, your live radar, your updated tropical track. I'll have the wind data on there. And again, we'll be going across our entire map here to give you that information. Again, continuously streaming here on the live tab. Look for that. It'll be running tonight, overnight, and at least through tomorrow morning through the duration of our Tropical Storm Alberto event. All right, let's get into it, friends. So the first thing, obviously, we want to get into here is with the first named storm. And again, yesterday, the biggest issue was that we didn't have a consolidated area of low pressure right around where that center was trying to form. Well, now we've had a big flare-up of thunderstorms, and we have a nice close center. So we do have a tropical storm. That being said, again, the impacts are going to be felt well away from the center of circulation, and really some of the strongest wind and highest rainfall impacts, and storm surge included, could be hundreds of miles north into the northwest Gulf of Mexico. So again, a lot of data on this. We'll parse this down for you. First of all of the numbers are the wind gusts over the last few hours here. Some of the oil rigs offshore, you can see reporting 45, nearly 50 mile an hour wind gusts, but the winds are beginning to pick up as well. Now, before we get into that, again, you're going to see a lot of tropical storm warnings that are currently in effect. Those are going to be for nearshore and offshore waters. There's some coastal flood warnings and watches that are currently in effect, wind advisories, flood watches. There's a lot of hazards that obviously go along with Tropical Storm Alberto in the northwest Gulf. Please check in with your local National Weather Service offices to get the newest information on all of that. I'm going to drop off these watches and warnings just because it's a little bit easier. The tropical storm warning from the Hurricane Center is that line in blue. Basically goes from Galveston Bay south into the north side of Mexico. But let's look at the weather here. Now, even into portions of Mississippi and Louisiana, we're getting at least some tropical storm gusts. They're near New Orleans, the Lake Pontchartrain, around a 35, nearly 40 mile an hour wind gust. Again, not consistent tropical storm force winds, but they get a little bit steadier. You get towards the southwest side of Louisiana near Lake Charles, and then we're starting to see those feeder bands really crank on shore right now. Places like Houston, there's the Galveston area right now. And again, this is all an onshore wind, so there is going to be some potential storm surge in this area to go along with maybe 3 to 6 inches of rain locally in the Houston, Galveston areas. And again, the winds are really picking up here. You can see just there that marine water level observation network there with a gust that approached 50 miles an hour. So we're going to have some sustained tropical storm force winds near the Houston, Galveston area, and certainly all areas to the south with some locally higher gusts to go along with it. Certainly could cause some power outage problems, certainly could down some trees out there, and of course, we're going to be running into a lot of rain. Now, you get down towards Corpus Christi, and the Hurricane Center is actually talking about the potential for 5 to 10 inches of rain from Corpus Christi south through the north side of Mexico, and obviously the winds are very fresh here as well. well. And some of that tropical storm force winds will be able to push at least inland, 15, 20 miles before it dissipates. But along the coastline, that's where we're going to get the most stout wind and rain. And of course, this rain spirals into North Mexico as well. As we've mentioned, on the south and west side of the center of circulation, there has been a big blowup of thunderstorms in the Bay of Campeche, but the wind and the rain issue south of the center of circulation is not going to be nearly as bad. Last report here, winds are 40 miles an hour. Let me get myself out of the way. Winds are 40 miles an hour. Movement is basically kind of west, maybe just a little nose south of west right now, and your minimal pressure is 995 millibars. It's not going to be a devastatingly, significantly large storm as far as its wind intensity, but again, the elongated nature of Alberto and all of the hazards to the north of it by several hundred miles put a lot of the northwest Gulf Coast here into play, especially southwest Louisiana and all of coastal Texas. This will remain this way the remainder of this Wednesday, and then overnight with conditions beginning to improve early on Thursday. Alberto is expected to move inland here very late tonight, but more than likely in the wee hours of Thursday, and then run into some of the higher terrain into Mexico and begin to dissipate after that. But let's look at some of the hazards. You're looking at your European model wind speeds through early on Friday. And again, a very fresh wind will stay in the northwest Gulf of Mexico. These are winds, gusts in miles per hour. And again, you can see that there will be some tropical storm force winds as far north as at least Galveston and Houston. Certainly in the offshore waters as well. Be very, very cautious there. Mariners should be staying in port regardless. But we can start to see that spiral inland, and we're still picking up some 50-mile-an-hour plus winds there in the northwest Gulf of Mexico. And then on the heels of that, we'll have to be talking about the next system that could be moving in. Storm surge forecast from the Hurricane Center has not changed from yesterday. It's 1 to 3 feet from Vermilion and Cameron Parish line there in Louisiana to the Sabine Pass, and then south towards Sargent, including the Galveston Bay area. Your peak storm surge of 2 to 4 feet. South of Sargent to the Rio Grande there, it's 1, 2, 3 feet. Again, I urge everyone to check in with your local officials for the latest messaging in your area. Now, I've mentioned it the last few videos. We have Alberto. That's Alberto. That'll be moving inland. On the heels of that, with this Central American gyre, there is the opportunity for yet another area of low pressure to try and develop in the exact same area over the weekend. That's what the GFS model is showing you. That is Alberto moving inland, and then over Central America and the Yucatan, emerging into the Bay of Campeche, the potential for another area of low pressure on the heels of this one over the weekend. That's the next one that I'll be monitoring for us here at Meteo Mundo. Of course, we'll be able to cross Alberto off the list. These are your 2024 Atlantic hurricane names. Beryl would be the next one in town. We hope we don't see it anytime soon, but we all know that this is forecast to be a very active season, so we'll see how that plays out. Now, we have, obviously, Tropical Storm Alberto right now, but the other one we need to talk about here is going to be out in the Atlantic. Now, I do want to mention here, when I put back on, excuse me, when I take off the visible satellite imagery, it's easier to see this area in yellow. That is the formation zone from the Hurricane Center over the next 7 days. And yes, it is talking about the next system potentially developing right where we have Alberto. The last one here that I've been monitoring is going to be this broader, weaker area of disturbed weather a few hundred miles east of the Bahamas. Now, this still has the opportunity to try and wrap up. We do have some fresh winds out there. There's a buoy that's been reporting some 35, nearly 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts from time to time. And we've had a cluster of storms. It's been a very interesting day here. You can see some pretty nasty storms that have been riding basically north of Walker's Key and Freeport, Lucaya, but we have had a cluster of thunderstorms work its way into Grand Bahama at the hour. And this has been what Central Florida has been dealing with. There is a weak mid-level circulation here that's riding its way through ahead of that disturbance. And I live in Central Florida, and I've had about 7 different downpours today to go along with very fresh winds. So again, for our friends in the Bahamas, this is for the Northwest and the Central Bahamas. Obviously, the winds are freshening up today. We're going to have some small craft advisories or cautions that I'll be monitoring here. We're going to have the easterlies really pick up, and then all eyes will be on, does this really try and wrap up and become something? At this point in time, the Hurricane Center only has it as a 20% chance, and I think that that is likely that this is going to stay weak, that more more than likely it is not going to develop into a tropical depression, and it's going to be very fast moving. It will bring some fast wind-driven rain to the central and the northwest sides of the Bahamas, so we'll be monitoring that. But again, as far as actually getting our second named system out of this, more than likely that's not going to happen. But over the next 48 hours, we're going to see some impacts here for the central and the northwest side of the Bahamas. Now, you can also see one of the impacts that's going to be happening here are going to be the wave heights kicking up. I mentioned the easterlies in the Bahamas. If you look on that legend in the bottom of your screen, that is, my friends, going to be some 7-8 foot waves or higher. Obviously, the northwest side and the western sides in general of the Gulf of Mexico will have those kinds of waves associated with Alberto. Pretty fresh winds across some of the other areas as well, including the central and the western sides of the Caribbean. And we still have this Central American gyre, which means that we're spinning in some winds through the Pacific side of the Central America area as well. So a lot of wind and wave action here associated with all the disturbances that I've mentioned, and that will continue for the next several days as well. Let's get into what's happening across the rest of our area on this Wednesday. Then we'll get into the forecast. If you haven't done it yet so far, thank you so much for hitting that like button. If you've been looking for your latest forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and of course updates on the tropics, you found your home here at Meteo Mundo. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button right now as well. Let's get started. It's been pretty active. We'll get into our friends in Jamaica right now. I am going to have to drop down this loop just a little bit. We had one bad frame of data, but over the last few hours, we've had a good cluster of showers and storms developing across the island again. Rich moisture, rich tropical moisture is still in play from Ocho Rios to Montego Bay and Negril, Savannah Lamar, Mandeville and Maypen. Once again, it's relatively island-wide. The showers and storms cranking up. Sure, not everyone is going to get the heaviest of downpours. I am noting a little bit more concentration of lightning on the northern side of the island there, as far east as Ocho Rios, but some of that activity is trying to drift a little bit farther off towards the east, Kingston and Port Antonio. My friends who live in Jamaica, drop in the comment section below. Let me know if you've gotten some of this rain. But again, active weather will continue in this area. We've had very active weather again for portions of the Cayman Islands. It's been a little bit more sporadic today. Again, still seeing some activity drop from north to south. Once again, you're looking at the live lightning data here at Meteo Mundo. In just this view over the last 15 minutes, just the last 15 minutes, we've had over 200 lightning strikes. A lot of that has been over Cuba. It's been a very, very stormy day through Cuba. Not as much over the southeast side of the Bahamas. And we're seeing a few storms develop right now over portions of the Turks and Caicos, but again, relatively spotty. But look, we still have this moisture axis. And I want you to note a fairly broad but anticyclonic spin here, or cyclonic spin actually, that's going counterclockwise and is trying to wrap into this disturbance. Nothing is very organized, obviously, but this is a broad area of very disturbed weather with that tropical wave that's come through that's really just thrown more tropical moisture into play. Now, eventually, we're going to see this area dry out with the Saharan dust, but at least one more afternoon of pretty active weather across Hispaniola. Again, thunderstorms are just developing at the hour. They are fairly widespread. They are area dependent, but I promise you there is a lot of lightning and very heavy rainfall where they're getting going at the hour. Near Santiago de los Caballeros, Puerto Plata there, Samana, a little bit dry towards Santo Domingo, but still the opportunity is going to be there. Samana on over towards Punta Cana. Then you go across the Mona Passage and into Puerto Rico. Very nasty storms right now. There's a lot of marine statements for all the lightning that's developing at the hour, but you can see those storms and the winds there. We had a nice little 30-mile-an-hour wind gust there in San Juan, and these showers and storms continue for the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands as well. What do you say we take a look at the live radar there out of Puerto Rico? So I'm going to bring that on, and again, look at that. When we pause that, in this view, 235 lightning strikes in just the last 15 minutes. Arecibo, Uti Alto, very heavy rain and storms developing there just towards the east of Isabela and the Aguadilla area there. Mayaguez, there's the Mona Passage. There's the really nasty weather over Punta Cana there on the eastern side of the Dominican Republic. all of that lightning, scattered storms for the southeast side. And again, you can just see all of the moisture that's in place. So all this kind of moving from south to north, which means additional showers and a few storms are going to try and cross areas like St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, Culebra, and Vieques as well. Relatively wet, stormy afternoon ahead for that region. Let's go over to the northern side of the Leeward Islands right now. Our friends in Anguilla, and again, I just got to drop this loop down just a little bit here to get rid of that bad frame. But we've had passing showers in this area for today. Nothing extremely prominent, but there will be that opportunity. Now, generally what's happening here is that the richest moisture is farther off towards the west, and we are beginning to see that nudge of Saharan dust move in. It's a little bit more concentrated farther south, but it is beginning to limit the opportunity. And in general, places like the Leeward Islands will start to see the rain chances come down a bit here over the next few days. So for Barbuda and Antigua and St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, again, passing showers still possible the remainder of this Wednesday afternoon. And we've had some fresher breezes, Dominica and Martinique and St. Lucia, all with some winds that have been gusting over 20 miles an hour. But you notice it is drier in this area today. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados as well, Grenada. You got to get back down towards Trinidad to try and get a few showers right now, but even that is a little bit more spotty. But there will be a few showers coming in from the mainland for those areas. It might stay south of Grenada. Decent blow up of storms over places like Guyana and Suriname and Venezuela for today. And then for our friends in the ABC Islands, again, I hope you've caught a few of these showers here. It's not very prominent, but could be some fast moving downpours in these areas, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And again, at least the opportunity is going to be there. And that's what you guys need. You guys need the opportunity for some rain. Let's go on over to Central America. Another wet afternoon, guys. It's just unbelievable how we've quickly flipped the script, and I'm sorry about that little hiccup there. I've got my presets at 6-hour loops, and right at about the 5-hour mark, 5 hours from before I time this, there's one bad frame, and it picks that up here, so I've just got to manually crank that number back down. But you can see all of the active weather again across the Yucatan. It's been a wet day, especially on the coastline for today. Cancun, Cozumel, on over towards San Pedro, Belize City, Dangriga, San Ignacio, at least a few showers. And again, if you live in Belize, let me know what's been going on. Certainly, we've had rain every day for the last several days. Again, trying to really turn this drought around, but some areas have gotten too much rain in too short an amount of time. And again, this Central American gyre just continues to pump in ample moisture throughout Central America, through the western sides of the Caribbean. This is not going to change. This is going to be a very active pattern here, but quite honestly, it's been very active almost area-wide, all that we've been mentioning here. So let's get into the forecast, okay? So a couple of things I'm going to do here. First of all, I'm going to drop off a couple of these parameters because it's just going to be a little bit easier to see everything. So let's get rid of the rain, the wind radii. Let's get rid of the 5-day forecast areas. So this is going to be the GFS model over the next 5 days. And let me get this into the right time frame and load this up. So we're going to look at the GFS model, and we're going to look at a lot of different parameters. We're going to look at, obviously, the reflectivity. We're going to look at the surface winds and the surface gusts. And then we're going to also look at the spin in the atmosphere as well. Then after this, and we're going to get the island by island rainfall forecast and look at those. After that, we'll get into the extended forecast and talk about, again, what might be trying to percolate up in portions of the Western Caribbean and the Southwest Gulf of Mexico for next week. But let's start with what's happening with Alberto. And again, this is always going to be a fairly sloppy, elongated system. So you see on the GFS, there's, we can obviously see that spin, and we see it moving in here as we get into the wee hours overnight and into our Thursday morning. But with this elongated system, and by the way, the blue is going to be the forecast for the tropical storm force winds sustained. And you notice again, that's kind of Corpus Christi south, but there'll be some winds up towards Houston, which is why the tropical storm warning goes that far north. But again, we're talking about 3 to 6 inches of rain near Houston and Galveston, and maybe 5 to 10. And this is from the Hurricane Center, by the way, 5 to 10 there from Corpus Christi off towards the south. Obviously, the weather improves on the heels of that until we get into the weekend, and this is the next system. So if I actually here go back over and take off the active system and then dump everything else here with this as well. Let's see, let's get rid of the forecast track. So now we literally have nothing. What else do I have? No, okay, it's all gone. So now we can actually see what the GFS is trying to wrap up in the Bay of Campeche over the weekend. and I'll have more on that coming up. But as I've mentioned in previous videos, you've got the Central American gyre, which is this huge spin. Gyre basically meaning that it's not moving, okay? And then on the periphery of this larger spin, we have smaller spins that are trying to developing, especially on the northern side, southwest Gulf of Mexico, northwest sides of the Caribbean, keeping it very active. And even if these don't wrap up into true tropical systems, it's still pumping in all of this tropical moisture. So again, we'll look at rainfall totals, but we're going to be inundated in these areas where flooding really starts to become a big concern. As much rain as we've already had and as much rain as we could possibly see over the next week or two. On over to what's going to be happening here in the Bahamas. And again, on the GFS model, that is the system quickly moving through. You notice it's not much. We'll look at the wind fields coming up. It'll be a little bit clearer to see, but if we're going to get some brief heavier rain, it's generally going to be even northwest of the Bahamas. Now, there's still going to be some downpours, fast moving, but as far as really wrapping anything up, we just don't see it on the models here. So again, fast moving system. Now, later in the period, by the time we get into the latter part of the weekend, more moisture could be surging into the south. So now the southeast Bahamas and the Turks and the Caicos will end up with a better chance for some rain there, with the next area to kind of keep an eye on. As I've mentioned, the GFS is starting to pick up on how far east this moisture is. So Cuba and the Cayman Islands and Jamaica all stay fairly wet. I mean, there could be some breaks in the action. It's not going to be all day rain, but tropical downpours that end up providing several inches of rain over the next 5 days, possible for our friends in Kingston and Georgetown and areas like that. For Jamaica itself, Ocho Rios, Montego Bay, again, just letting this loop over 5 days, and we'll just see additional rain moving in over the weekend as well. Again, could be more concentrated from time to time, but overall the chance of rain is going to be high. Now for Hispaniola, again, it's been a very wet, stormy afternoon. As we get into tomorrow, we will start to see the rain fade a bit. We are going to get influenced by this Saharan dust. It's not going to be completely dry, but expect rain chances to go down tomorrow and Friday. And then late Saturday, maybe as we get into Sunday, the rain chances should start to improve again. So a few drier days with the weekend looking a little bit wetter for places like Port-au-Prince and Santo Domingo. For our friends in Puerto Rico, San Juan, Arecibo, Ponce, the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, it's going to play out about the same as what we're going to see in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, where again, a relatively wet, stormy day, scattered showers for portions of tomorrow and Friday, but it's a little bit drier overall. And then we start to see more rain move in Saturday, but especially on Sunday. So I'll be monitoring that. We'll be drier overall for the rest of the Lesser Antilles. Again, with the tropical waves coming in, they're being suppressed by the Saharan dust. So there is that yin-yang factor here. And again, the next tropical wave that is on the heels of this one, just not going to have the same punch. So when you look over the next 5 days, we don't have a lot of concentration of rain from Anguilla, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, Barbados. Once again, the intertropical convergence zone, which is off to the south, is a little bit more active, and it will drive some rain into portions of South America that could clip places like Trinidad and Tobago. That's the areas that have a little bit better chance for rain, maybe Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, but overall not a ton. And then the ABC Islands, again, I've been optimistic to put in at least some rain chances in your area, but as far as it goes, not looking like a ton overall. Few scattered showers here and there with very brisk easterlies continuing. Obviously, all of Central America continues to stay very wet. Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. We're going to be talking about inches and inches of rain and very wet forecast and a lot of wind action in this area as well. And we'll deep dive into the tropical aspects of this coming up in just a second. But let's break down the rain chance over the next 3 days. Again, Northwest Bahamas, we're going to, basically get you a tent pole for rain tomorrow as that fast moving system moves in. The showers and storms, you could get just like what we're seeing in Florida today, where you might get multiple rounds of rain, but it's not going to last long in any one area because it's going to be moving so fast. But about a 60% chance tomorrow, back down to a 30% chance on Friday. Again, A little bit of a tent pole there in the central and southeast Bahamas for tomorrow with the highest rain chances, and then lower on Friday. Turks and Caicos, with that moisture developing to the north here, we'll start to see higher rain chances on Friday. Cuba just stays very wet. Same thing for the Cayman Islands. And Belize City, Cancun, and Cozumel should expect rain pretty much every day through Friday. But again, it's not just Friday, through multiple more days after that as well. There's just no drier weather in store for the Yucatan or Central America in the near future. Jamaica's rain chances stay high and could be even a little bit higher Friday into the weekend with the next surge of moisture. Again, the Dominican Republic, good chance today, comes down a bit the next couple of days. Same thing for Puerto Rico. Same thing for the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, okay? But then the rain chances should begin to elevate again maybe on Sunday. Might be a little bit, same 40% chance on Saturday, but going back up on Sunday. Bermuda is an in-between system, so just a few scattered showers there. Anguilla, after, a good chance for some downpours nearby or in the vicinity. For today, we'll start to dry out. Same thing for our friends in Saba. And that's going to be the forecast for places like Antigua and Barbuda, Montserrat, and Barbados as well. And again, Barbados has been kind of in that drier slot anyway here, so the rain chances haven't been as high. St. Vincent and the Grenadines play out as well. Trinidad and Tobago, 30% chance the remainder of today. Fairly dry for tomorrow. Just a nudge of tropical moisture coming back in on Friday, but not a high chance. And even Suriname's a little bit drier over the next 3 days. And again, if we're lucky, we'll get some rain, at least in a passing variety for the ABC Islands. Okay, back over to our model here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extend it out in time, and then we're going to look at all of the things that I mentioned. And again, if you haven't hit that like button yet, it really, really helps the channel out, and I appreciate you. If you're getting anything out of this video, thank you so much for hitting that like button now. And again, click that subscribe button if you'd like to follow along here, be a part of the Meteo Mundo weather community. Let's go out, what do you say, a full week? I think that's probably a pretty good idea. So again, we're going to take this out a full week, and I am going to, as I did, dump some of these areas here, so it's just a little bit easier for us to see. We'll keep on Alberto, that's fine, no big deal. All right, I tell you what, I'll take Alberto off too. All right, so there goes Alberto, it's gone. Now let's look over the next week. So we'll get back into the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. Again, here comes the latest spin moving back in as we get towards the 22nd and the 23rd. There it is. It again should quickly drive in to portions of Mexico or South Texas. That's what it looks like on reflectivity. And you can see there's more developing on the far northwest side of the Caribbean, south central Gulf of Mexico over the Yucatan. There's going to be multiple areas to continue to monitor. If I switch this over to wind gusts, it's going to be much clearer to see where we might have some centers of circulation, some areas of low pressure trying to develop, okay? So again, we've already looked at the European model that does have the potential active area in the Bay of Campeche over the weekend. Well, let's look at the GFS now. And again, the GFS, this is Alberto today on the 19th, and it's tracking inland as we get into overnight early tomorrow morning. Then we're going to have more fresh wind coming off the Yucatan back into the Bay of Campeche, and here you go again. Very far southwest Gulf. As we get into Saturday, we start to see this next potential spin up. We'll see how it plays out. Again, the Hurricane Center does have this as a potential tropical formation zone. This one might be weaker. This one might be even briefer because it might be moving really quickly into North Mexico. But that's the next area to watch out for. And then more wind energy in the Northwest Caribbean into the South Central Gulf. Nothing over the next 7 days that spins up right there, as we're seeing in the Southwest Gulf. But again, when you're in this larger environment of this Central American gyre, we're going to continue to see the opportunity for some spin-ups, even in the southwest side of the Caribbean, because again, El Nino is now gone, guys. So the wind shear issue is now gone. And when you have all of this ample moisture and you have La Nina with very little wind shear and sea surface temperatures that are extremely hot, all of those factors come into play to get the possibility for additional areas of interest over just the next 7 days. Let's go back over to what's going to be happening here with this potential spin up in the eastern side, east of the Bahamas into the Western Atlantic. Again, you never really see anything big wrap up here, all right? Just a little area devoid of a lot of wind and a bit of a fresher breeze on the northern extent of that, but that's really about it. Okay, and we'll look at the NAM model as well, but it's about the same. There's just nothing that really wraps around. A little bit of drier air to the south of there. But again, it's going to kick up the sea conditions here through the northwest Bahamas and the eastern side of the Gulf Coast states as well. East Florida, East Coast line, Georgia, Savannah, all with some pretty fresh breezes over the next several days. But again, as far as the opportunity to wrap thing up, I don't think it's really going to happen. We'll stay with some pretty strong winds as well through the Caribbean, especially down towards the ABC Islands. But all that's going to be in one direction. The other thing I can do here, if you guys give me just 1 second, it's kind of a neat thing. I can actually put on, I tell you, I'm going to do this. Let's go on to our 10-meter winds. All right, so there's the 10-meter winds there. And then let me switch over to the 10-meter winds here. And then I'm going to loop this up. So what you're looking at is the surface winds, and then I'm going to actually put on the wind arrows. And that will give you the actual wind numbers here. And we're going to see what that profile looks like. Again, there's a lot of information in this, so it might take a second to actually loop all of this up, but that's okay. We'll give it a second here and talk about it. But just to kind of show you the wind direction and the wind energy that I expect here over the next 7 days. So let's start again into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. All right. And again, with this, we see Alberto. There is Alberto moving in. And the pinks, by the way, are going to be winds of around 25 knots. The whites, the arrows of the whites, are going to be winds of 30. So you can see that. And again, look how extended those 25 to 30 knot winds are all the way into the northwest Gulf of Mexico. Now on the heels of that, here comes our next spin up. There it is right there. Very clear to see. Really fresh winds actually on the southwest side. This actually might consolidate into a low faster than Alberto did, but it might be gone in a hurry as well. And that's about it. Now, again, in the extended, we're going to see pretty good winds, again, redevelop in the south central Gulf of Mexico about a week from now. So we'll see how that plays out. On over towards the western Atlantic, and we'll take a look at this system. Again, we're looking at surface winds out of this product. Again, we can see a kink in the arrows right there. Very clear to see east of Eleuthera, east of Abaco there in the northwest side of the Bahamas. But we can just see that never really fully wraps up. You notice how you never actually get the counterclockwise winds in full here. Fairly brisk winds on the northern sides, but that's about it as far as that goes. And again, just extending this out. At this point in time, over the next 7 days, those are the two bigger games in town. And then maybe right at that 7-day mark, we look into the Northwest Caribbean and we look into portions of the Gulf of Mexico for our next potential development. But this keeps us active. And once the Saharan dust is down, more tropical waves moving into the Eastern Caribbean as well. Look at the rain totals, guys, on the European model. So you're looking at just the next 7 days. All right. And now you're looking at rainfall totals in portions of Central America that are, again, are over 1.5 feet, over 18 inches of rain on the Pacific side, but so much red on this map. 3-4 inches of rain plus. Again, 4 inches of rain is 100 millimeters, and you can see how extended that is. Look at the north sides of Mexico. We're over 1 foot of rain there. South Texas on the European model, again, right near shore, where those browns around 6 to 8 inches of rain with locally higher amounts. So Corpus Christi off towards the south. And again, this is a relatively wet pattern. There's not a ton of areas where you see 1 or 2 inches of rain over the next 7 days. You're looking at 3, 4, 5+ inches in many locations. The active pattern continues, and again, especially for our western areas, even after Alberto is gone, the Central American gyre sticks around, and that means the active weather does stick around as well. Friends, you know you can follow us through all of social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, where we do some exclusive content there, X, Facebook. You have a picture or a video you want to send me, mymediamundo@gmail.com. Of course, thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. And remember, also check out the live stream where we're going to be running our weather computer 24/7 with all the information on Tropical Storm Alberto. Again, you go to the live tab of Meteo Mundo, you find that will be streaming here when you're done watching this video. Friends, thank you so much for your support. You have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you tomorrow right here at Meteo Mundo.